Hello and welcome to the Theological Family Ministry podcast. We're a podcast that's dedicated to equipping and encouraging parents, children's workers, and even pastors to disciple the children that God has put under their care and influence. We're trying to further the conversation about how what we believe, that's our theology, affects how we parent, how we minister, and how we live. As always, I'm joined by
Pastor Anthony Trussoni, Tony, the family pastor at Westminster Baptist Church in Westminster, Maryland. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing okay. And I'm Ben Palaz. I'm the family and children's discipleship pastor at Curtis Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia.
Now, I have to ask you before we get in much in this conversation, Ben. So are you hoping in the Super Bowl the Patriots win, the Eagles win, or are you hoping that somehow something happens strange with the space-time continuum and this is all undone in a work of God's great justice?
Yeah, and that the Falcons end up winning it. No, I just want to see the Patriots lose. I imagine you concur.
Connie, I imagine that you have a little bit different feelings on that.
Well, I'm actually a Broncos fan because I grew up in Colorado most of the time. So, yeah, and I can remember an awful game between the Broncos and Patriots many years ago, and I still kind of hold that against the Patriots. So I'm afraid I am still also of the same persuasion. It's like I kind of like to see them lose also. So, anyway.
And that's our special guest today, Connie Dever. Now, Connie is the author of the Praise Factory Family of Curriculum. Now, her bio on her website says that she's been teaching children and developing curriculum for use in churches in the United States and abroad for over 30 years. She's also wife to Mark, the senior pastor of Capitol Hill Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., and president of 9 Marks. So, Connie, it's good to have you with us today. How are you?
Thanks. Good to be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time for us. I have a personal question for you. Do you remember Byron and Barbara Boyer in Louisville, Kentucky?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, they said that they housed Mark's part of his library when you guys moved to England, and they were afraid that the roof was going to cave in. Oh,
that's so funny. Well, now it probably would be our basement that would cave in. So when the kids left home, the playroom down in the basement of our house wasn't used as much. And then finally this past year, they decided we know what we'll use that for. We'll make that Mark's extra playroom. And so anyway,
very good.
So yes, yep. There were a lot of books and there's even more now. So there's that.
We want to talk to Connie today about that Praise Factory family of curriculum and just the overall idea of teaching theology to kids. When it comes to ministry to children, too often what can prevail is a focus on fun, psychedelic lights and lasers, cuteness, sentimentality. I mean, you name it. And those are all things that we have, I hope, charitably critiqued in various ways on this podcast before. But Connie's going to take us a little further in that. And she's actually had the radical idea of teaching kids doctrine across the whole Bible. And so, Connie, with that intro, where did the idea for Praise Factory investigators and the related curricula, where did that come from?
Ben, you mean Connie doesn't sell psychedelic lights on the side, by the way?
How do you know?
There was no links, but I suppose it's possible.
Yeah, no, not really. So you got me pegged there. Well, I guess circumstantially, the idea came up when we first moved here to Washington, D.C., and Mark became senior pastor here at Capitol Hill Baptist Church. There was already in place during the Sunday school hour your more standard through the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament sort of curriculum. And my husband, in case you didn't know, preaches about an hour-long sermons. And so while our goal, even in the way we write curriculum, is for everyone to gather together. We're certainly not fans of having something separate going on for the teens during church time and something else separate for the elementary school kids, because we think that kids will learn better in homogeneous groups. We want to see a picture from a revelation of the whole body gathered together before the throne. And we
Amen.
See worship services as a dress rehearsal of that. So while that is our goal, nonetheless, our services run about an hour before we even get to the sermon. So we decided we really wanted our kids in for the prayers and the scripture readings and all sorts of other things that take place. No psychedelic lights, though, during the first part of the service, and provide something for those with younger elementary school kids who would like that for their kids, to a special class for them, and then we would keep eyes on them, and as they seem to be ready to gather with the whole body, then we'll say to parents, so we think your child's ready, so go ahead, take them back and keep them for the whole sermon, which is basically fourth grade, and then now it's third grade, just due to numbers, we've had to lower that. But anyway, so my husband comes, he's preaching hour-long sermons. We decided we wanted a second teaching time. We didn't want it to be like the Sunday school time. And I'd already been doing quite a bit of thinking about reaching kids. And so they basically said, what would you like to do? And since I was eager to try to help think of what would be a good second program, and my answer was everything. And so, I didn't want to go Baskin Robbins and have vanilla. I wanted to have all 31 or however many flavors there are. And so, and I just thought, it needed to be organized, and so when you put everything together with organized, you kind of get systematic theology in my mind. Yes. So, and we have a great heritage of that in catechisms, and so that was another piece of teaching theology, is using that question and answer model of theology.
Praise the Lord. That's wonderful.
And just having theology, like you said, the bringing it all together. I mean, it just shows the truthfulness of Scripture, that God's behind it, and we have a reliable God. He's right. Consistent, and so.
Yeah. And I think the reason why, some people will say, really, that seems like a little bit deep for little kids, but God created them with a spirit. He created them to know and love Him, and part of that spirit is a curiosity. And especially in this broken world, to understand and make sense of it. And so we find that giving them a structured look at the truths of God helps them have a great framework to understand both the brokenness and the hope of redemption in their lives, and that we've seen already in our lives. So they seem very much to care about it, but not if you think you're going to sit them in a classroom like at seminary, well, then that's where you need to reconsider what you're doing. So the way we put it is two dead men and a diamond. The first dead man was Martin Luther, and he talked about theology not just being dry and heady stuff, but how you live and how you die. And I would say that pretty much sums it up for me, and I think for the kids as well. And then dead man number two was John Bunyan. He talked about truths using all the gates to the heart. And so whether it was the eye gate or the ear gate or whatever kind of gate, we even add the stomach gate. And actually, it's one of our most popular gates. And so that everything actually that in terms of activities helps lead them back to this truth. And that's a great way to teach. We found that's a great way to teach theology, because the kids, I guess now what they call it multiple intelligences, and being multisensory, all that sort of thing. That's basically what the gates come down to. It's just that we're headed for the heart, as the Lord enables, and for the head as well.
That's awesome.
So,
praise the Lord.
Well, and the third one is the diamond. I forgot the diamond. You had two dead men and a diamond, and the diamond. My husband loves Puritan sermons, and
as
one
does
of
Tony.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there's some really good ones. Anyway,
my son's middle name is Sibbs, so.
Oh, I mean, there you go. That is wonderful. I love Richard Sibbs. I love Bruce Reed. Obviously Mark did his PhD on him, so
dropper.
He's awesome. Anyway, but oftentimes when they preach a sermon, they look at a truth from a lot of different perspectives, kind of like the facets of a diamond. And again, we find that's been a great way to teach theology, is not just present the truth and, okay, now on to the new one, but let's take it and look at it from a lot of different facets. So
that's awesome.
That's how we've done theology, and that's why we do theology.
Well, yeah, I find amazing and so right your implementation of how we need to bring all of Scripture into it, and not just the Baskin Robbins approach that giving them everything, and actually makes me think of as many think that it might be above their heads. I think of 2 Timothy 3, where it so clearly shows how Timothy in his childhood by his mother and his grandmother were given all that Baskin Robbins choices, and all those Baskin Robbins choices together, that all Scripture, it shows, even the minor prophets, even stuff like that, came together into the stew that was Timothy in a really amazing way that God drove. So, yeah, I think that's really amazing. So, now, why take the route of teaching systematic theology as opposed to just chronological character studies, maybe topical approach that many might take? And with that second part of that question, how do you think it is effectively done, and what are effective ways of doing that teaching of systematic theology?
First of all, with what we've been having, with what our church does during the Sunday school hour, we already sort of have a chronology going on, a chronology teaching going on. So I find that Praise Factory is a beautiful twosome, well, really sort of threesome, because we also do missions in the evening called the Great Commission Club. So I don't know that I would choose one over the other, but I also find that at home, usually what's happening is kids are getting more read Bible stories chronologically as well. Yeah. So we seem to bring another piece to it. Also, another desire that I had was to try to create a curriculum that could be used in a lot of different ways. And so we've had people use it as a VBS, use it kind of instead of Awanas, various things. And by the fact that, systematic theology is sort of topical, if you think about it, by theme, that you can take one theme, and we've often done that, is take one particular one of the themes and used it in a particular setting such as VBS. So I guess that was another reason why I chose that. It has a lot of flexibility. And then the how, I guess I was just kind of saying that is with understanding, I call it know your critters, and which means, when you've got very small critters, like very young, toddlers, 2s and 3-year-olds, then what you're going to do is kind of understand who they are, what they're like, go and they play, and then they come back and they learn. And we use music in the background while they're playing and different things like that. So, and then when you get to older kids, we're still using a lot of activities, but understanding what they're like and make those activities fit them. But again, that importance of you making all the activities a conduit of truth is key to me, and it's something that takes a session from, your teaching time, and then, your kids are just kind of going wild and enjoying themselves, but not really remembering what they learned, to the whole time is learning and then kind of relearning from a different angle. That same truth.
That's good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, you talk about the idea of truth in a time capsule while teaching kids. Kind of unpack that for us.
John Newton is a great example of that. He was taught very well by his mother at a young age, and probably even used Isaac Watts's catechisms for young children. That was all the rage at that time. And she died when he was still very young of tuberculosis. And his father was a not so godly but respectable seafaring captain. And under his charge, things changed quite a bit. And it wasn't until much later in his life that when he was out on the storm and cried out to God, that it was the truths that his mom taught him when he was very young that came back to mind. So there's a perfect example of a time